What is the value of the number one pick in the draft this year in terms of compare it to other years? In terms of its trade value and everything else.
It's certainly not what it was last year. Like if the Bears had tried to auction the number one pick, I can't imagine what they would have been able to get, because you see that what the Patriots were offered for 3. Like the Vikings were willing to give up 11, 23, and another first-round picks to get to number 3, which must make you feel pretty good about Drake May, seeing what the Vikings have done with their quarterbacks and how good they are at evaluating. And I don't think it's worth what it was 2 years ago either, when Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud were at the top of the board. It's not a very good year for quarterbacks, and the value of those picks inside the top 5 is dictated by the quarterbacks. So that said, I think there will be value to it, because you have at least two guys who I think will probably go higher than they should, in Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I don't think they're certainly not as good as the top 3 guys last year. I think any of the top 3 guys last year would have been the number 1 overall pick this year. And I think you probably say the same for the two guys the year before that, who aren't as good as the 3 guys last year coming out. Now, CJ, I think, has played better, but it's the thing is, it's all supply and demand, and you have at least 3 teams, I think, that are in a pretty desperate spot at quarterback that are going to be close to the number 1 pick, and that's Tennessee, the Giants, and the Raiders. And so you have at least those 3 teams that I think will be in on, do all the work on the quarterbacks. 2 of those teams have been on the road nonstop over the last 2 or 3 months. The Giants and the Raiders have been all over the top quarterbacks over the last 2 or 3 months. So I think the value of having the number 1 pick is certainly that you're in pole position, and if you've got teams competing for a quarterback, then you're going to be able to get a lot for it. And it's way more valuable than having the 4th or 5th pick. Way, way, way more valuable. You can look at the history of it. Look at what the you can't call them the Redskins anymore, I guess, right? But what Washington did in 2012 to get up from 6 to 2. That's the difference in value between the picks.
All right. So what's the deal with JJ McCarthy? You mentioned Minnesota.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold's a free agent. They're playing for their 15th win on Sunday night.
Yep.
JJ McCarthy, I've heard people say JJ McCarthy's better than any quarterback in this draft. He would have been number 1 pick in the draft.
I don't know. It's possible, yeah.
I just heard people say it. So how is Minnesota entertaining trading JJ McCarthy?
No, not right now. I think they really like JJ. This is a champagne problem to have if you're the Vikings. They have JJ McCarthy under contract for the next 3 years plus the option. Mm-hmm. So there's no need for them to do anything. It's the most important position on the field, obviously. He is under cost control. So why would you move off of a guy that you really love at that position when you've got like that amount of control over him? You wouldn't. There's no reason to do it. And I think there's a very easy parallel here. Is the Chargers. In 2004, when they were disappointed with Drew Brees' progress through 3 years, so they draft Phillip Rivers, 4th overall, after Eli refused to play there, and the thought was Rivers is going to beat Brees out in camp. Then Brees, get a hair across his ass about the whole thing, and lit a fire under him. He beats out Rivers. He has a great year. They win 12 games. It's like, oh, God, what do we do? Well, they franchised Brees for another year in 2005. Brees plays that whole year. They win 9 games again, and he hurts his shoulder at the end of the year, and the whole thing sort of takes care of itself naturally from there. Point is, you can use the franchise tag here. And I've gone from thinking, because they loved JJ, and they loved his progress until August. Here's the problem that they have, is even if you wanted to do that at this point, how do you sell that to the veterans in that locker room, right? Like the guys that you've brought in that are 25, 26, 27 years old, that are in the primes of their careers, and they were just part of a 14 or 15-win team. Next year, how do you sell the idea to them? Oh, yeah, you know what? That quarterback who played great for you, we're going to let him go and roll the dice on this guy who you haven't seen since August, who just lost 4 months of development because he's hurt. Like as highly as you might think of JJ, that's a really tough sell for a veteran player in that locker room. We saw what they think of Sam. So, I think it's sort of a tough spot for them where it's like, if you're the Vikings, you got to look at it and say, we have to serve the rest of our roster. And it sucks that we got to bite the bullet and pay $40 million when we have like a cost control quarterback we really like over here. But let's just do it for another year.
Okay, but my argument to that would be, all right, so you have a window here. You're exploiting the window. If I trade JJ McCarthy, I can win now.
You could, yeah.
I can improve my team.
So do you feel comfortable with Sam as your quarterback for the next 10 years is the question then?
Right, but do you take Sam Darnold, who is a higher pick and probably a better talent than JJ McCarthy coming out?
I mean, I would say it's probably right.
No, it is right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Sam Darnold was, and everyone, this, Bert, everyone that covered, this is no surprise to a lot of people that watch Sam Darnold.
Right.
We've talked about this
Probably
before.
Not a surprise to you, right?
Sam Darnold, out of all the failures that the Jets have, is the one guy that everyone that covered the Jets said is probably going to end up being a good quarterback somewhere else. That wasn't what they said about Zach Wilson. That wasn't what they said about.
And the Vikings are like the perfect situation.
Yeah,
too, so you got to say that. Like,
but I mean, the perfect situation is the perfect situation. That's the reality of the situation. So if you have Sam Darnold, who's not old and has an opportunity to win, is going to win, have won 14 or 15 games this year.
And it's played great. Legitimately played great.
There's
a reason they're winning.
And it's not like a Mac Jones thing where he's like really, because you mentioned the system, like it's a great situation, but Sam Darnold's not like a slave to the system.
And he's making high-level throws. Like there's like you see stuff. Like, right. It's like, all right, that's why he was a third pick.
So if I was the Vikings and I said, okay, this draft is very weak at quarterback. I don't know about the next one or the next one. This draft's very weak at quarterback. We just so happen that our 15-win starter, 14-win starter has got his contract up. We can now. This is the opportunity to move off McCarthy and get a ransom for him, and then if you get multiple firsts, you could always take a quarterback next year. And then you start the clock again.
And if you're looking at it and say you're the Raiders and you don't, like say Mike Vrabel goes to the Raiders, right? And say, I think Shedeur Sanders is just a guy. I think Cam Ward's got a lot of weirdness around him. I don't want to do it. Like if you say that, then you say, well, we may have to trade up for those guys anyway. So we'd be giving up multiple first-round picks. So let's just offer it to the Vikings.
Right.
And now we got a guy who's already been in the league for a year, who's been coached by Kevin O'Connell, who's spent a year working behind Sam Darnold, who's learned. There's merit to that idea. Now, would the Vikings do it is the question.
Right.
And, I mean, if you're the Vikings, you could look at it and say, you mean we can get the 4th pick in the draft or the 5th pick in the draft to do this? So now you're the Vikings and you're saying, I could add Travis Hunter. Like maybe if I could add Travis Hunter now, so Travis Hunter becomes my number one corner, and now he's a gadget weapon to use with Justin Jefferson, which is just like the most ridiculous idea, Yeah,
if I trade McCarthy, I can get the best player at a premium position in the draft.
Right.
And maybe and then some. So that would be interesting because if I'm
you wind up with Will Johnson from Michigan, you know what I mean?
Right. So yeah, exactly. The premium, you get the best player at a position. So my thing is this: it's obviously you want the number 1 overall pick in the draft. It's the best pick to have. Obviously you don't want to win on Sunday, but I'll ask you this then. Do you think that Deion Sanders is going to be involved in Shedeur Sanders and where he goes? What are you hearing about that?
Yeah. So I think ultimately it's going to be up to Shedeur. I think Deion is going to have an influence, of course. But I think it's going to be more than like Archie Manning over Eli? No.
No, but do you think there's a chance that, like Eli Manning, that they tell the team, don't draft Shedeur?
Oh, yeah. I think that's possible.
Okay, so here's a code red situation for the Patriots. If I'm the Patriots, I get the number 1 pick, we're all satisfied with ourselves. We'll get into the whole playing Drake May. Say they don't play Drake May, and they deliberately lose on Sunday, and they get the number 1 pick in the draft, and everyone's stretching out their suspenders and feeling pretty good about themselves. And then the Vikings say, "Oh, we're going to trade JJ McCarthy to the Raiders." Okay. Oh, this isn't going to happen because Shedeur wore Giants sneakers. All right, say this: the Giants trade for JJ McCarthy. Then Shedeur Sanders says, "I'm not going to the Raiders." And then the Raiders take Cam Ward. They know you're not taking anyone, and they know that the team in front of them that they can't take a quarterback. So they're going to just sit tight. I just can picture a scenario where you're sitting there going, we have the number 1 overall pick. We're so satisfied with ourselves and how we deliberately lost the last game of the season.
So then you just take the best player in the draft,
which is there's
winding up with Travis Hunter. We had this argument yesterday. Winding up with Travis Hunter is not a consolation prize.
But it's funny. Because there's this idea that by having the number 1 pick in the draft,
it doesn't always work out that way. Yeah.
Yes, you're going to get this giant haul, and there's a chance you could do it where you're not. And by the way, there's no Myles Garrett in this draft. Right. There's no freaky stud in this draft.
I was going to bring that up. Is the draft that Patrick Mahomes was in, the team with the number 1 overall pick, stood pat and didn't take a quarterback. So. We've seen it before, Now, I'd have to look up how many drafts has it been not a quarterback at 1? Because you had Baker in 18, you had Kyler in 19, you had Burrow in 20, you had Lawrence in 21, you had 22 wasn't a quarterback, it was 22. 23 was Bryce Young, 24 was Caleb. So 22 was the one where you didn't have one because that was the Kenny Pickett year.
Draft that did not have a quarterback.
It was 22. It was 22.
It was Trevon Walker.
Well, there was
Trevon Walker.
Geno Smith was
they should have taken 8. They should have taken 8 and Hutchinson.
And Myles Garrett was the next one before that, 2017.
Right. So that's why you need. See, that's why you need to, because this is probably the 22 draft where you need Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders to get hot. You need the Raiders and the Giants because it's not a guarantee. And I'd say this class of quarterbacks is a lot more like the 22 class than it is 23 or 24. And 23 wasn't nearly as good as 24.
Well, Shedeur Sanders didn't play particularly well in his bowl game, and there's questions about him, and I don't know if Cam
Ward thing. I'm just telling you.
Cam Ward is
that whole argument. I want some clarity on that
about not coming out for the second half.
Yeah, because I think and too many people are just. Look, I'm pro player on a lot of stuff. There are people who are pro player on everything. No matter what the player does, he can never be wrong. In this case, if they had a deal before the game to sit the second half, I'm going to play the first half, and then we're going to get the young kid, then that's fine with me because then you had a chance to get the backup ready. The other players on the team know it's not going to affect that. If you had a chance to plan that out, fine. If this kid just pulled the plug at halftime, that's something else entirely. Because now if I'm the team drafting him, I've got a ton of questions. Who's around him? Who's advising him? What's he going to do when he's in a contract year with me? Because he's already being paid. Why do I think that that's going to be different when he's in the last year of his contract as a pro? There's a ton of other questions you would have with him. On top of the fact that Cam Ward in the transfer portal last year was a circus. And I can tell you that because I have firsthand knowledge of it. I would just say that's one thing that's really interesting is the Cam Ward thing. I think as you dig into it, there's going to be stuff that I think is going to back up some of the things that you saw in the bowl game.
Well,
which the Pop-Tarts Bowl was a classic.
Exactly.
I don't know if you guys saw the videos and stuff, but it was it was one of the.
You were all over the Pop-Tarts Bowl. They made the big Pop-Tart at the end. You had a big.
I haven't watched the All-22 yet, but watching it in real time was an event. Right. We had a party.
Yeah.
No. The game presentation was the best. I don't know if you saw the He Is Risen moment with the Pop-Tart from the year before coming.
There was a lot of ironic fun. I'll tell you, but if you don't know, we're talking about Cam Ward and his Miami's bowl game. Played the first half, and then didn't come out for the second half to play. And there had been no heads up about it, and there was really no explanation.
And we don't know.
After.
We don't know. That's the thing. Is the coach didn't say anything. And
you could tell he was pissed.
If the coach said it was planned, then it's probably a one-day story. But the fact that he didn't, tells you there might be something else going on there.
And why wouldn't he?
Right.
Like if it was, like he would want to.
He would want to clear it up right
exactly.
away.
And plus, it makes him look better.
Right.
So that's weird. So I just, we'll talk about the pros and cons of playing May next, which I thought was an interesting argument to even be having, but a lot of people that cover the team.
It's all connected, though. I mean, all the stuff that we just talked about with the first overall pick, and I think what it boils down to with that is you would hope at the very least having that number 1 overall pick would give you options. Yeah. I don't know that those options are as prevalent this year as they have been in years past when there's, for all the reasons we just mentioned. But, okay, that all leads to, are they going to do something to try and get that number 1 overall pick?
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.